He once laughed about sneaking into clubs at 16 with a paper license and a little white correction fluid. Back then, he said, it depended on the bouncer and how confident you looked holding that flimsy card in your hand. New Jersey in the late 70s felt loose, reckless, almost innocent. For decades later, that same teenager was no longer sneaking past velvet ropes. He was the face of arena romance, the man who wrote an anthem about holding on to love when times get hard. Then, in April 2024, he sat down for a televised interview and said something that cut through the image he had carried for years. He said he got away with murder. He mentioned there may have been 100 women. Later, he called the comment arrogant. The headline traveled faster than any love song ever had. John Francis Bon Jovi Jr. was born on March 2, 1962, in Perth Amboy, New Jersey. His parents were both former United States Marines, which meant discipline was not optional in their house. His father cut hair for a living. His mother worked different jobs over the years, including running a fan club that would eventually connect thousands of people to her son's rising career. They were not wealthy. They were steady. He grew up with two brothers in a working-class neighborhood where you learned to push forward or get left behind. By 12, he had already formed his first band. They lost a school talent show, finishing last, but he did not treat it like humiliation. He treated it like rehearsal. By 16, he was playing clubs with older musicians, absorbing stage time like oxygen. He met David Bryan and built early versions of what would become something much bigger. Rejection from record labels followed him for years. He carried demos from office to office, hearing no until the word felt permanent. In 1983, one radio station finally said yes. Runaway began to spin. The only problem was he did not yet have a permanent band. So he built one quickly. Richie Sambora entered the picture, and the chemistry locked in almost immediately. Songs were written in basements and cramped rooms, sometimes fueled more by belief than comfort. The breakthrough came in 1986. A third album exploded commercially and turned struggle into stadiums. Suddenly, the young man who once froze in cheap apartments was filling arenas across continents. Fame did not creep in quietly. It arrived like a flood. Long before the world knew his name, he had met Dorothea Hurley in high school. She let him copy homework in history class. He later said he was drawn to her from the first moment. She was grounded, disciplined in her own way, even earning a high-level black belt in karate. She was not dazzled by ambition because she knew him before it had results. They briefly separated in 1985 as pressure built around his rising career. He dated someone else for a short period. But the distance clarified what they were to each other. They reunited. On April 29, 1989, at the height of international success, they eloped in Las Vegas. No announcement. No grand spectacle. No permission from management. The industry preferred him single, a fantasy fans could project onto. Marriage complicated that image. He chose it anyway. Life on the road blurred cities into one long corridor of hotels and stages. Tours stretched across months and sometimes more than a year at a time. Exhaustion became normal. Temptation did too. In 1993, he released a ballad that felt intimate and raw. Years later, he admitted it was autobiographical, written in a lonely hotel room while wrestling with guilt and excess. By 2006, he publicly acknowledged that fame came with indulgence and that he had not been immune to it. He did not dramatize the admission. He framed it as part of the culture he lived inside. Still, the marriage remained intact. They built a family. Stephanie arrived in 1993, followed by Jesse, Jake, and Romeo. Fatherhood layered new weight onto old habits. He has said he left for tours reluctantly, aware of what absence costs. Dorothea worked to keep their home from becoming an extension of the stage. Dinner at the table mattered more than headlines. Then, in November 2012, reality cut deeper than rumor ever could. At 1:51 a.m., police responded to a dormitory call at Hamilton College. 19-year-old Stephanie had overdosed. She survived. Charges were dropped under New York's Good Samaritan law because help had been called quickly. For him, the law was irrelevant. The phone call at 2 in the morning was enough. He later described it as the worst moment of his life. The band's internal story shifted too. In April 2013, Richie Sambora failed to appear before a scheduled performance. A brief statement cited personal issues. He never returned full-time. Over time, reasons surfaced: family priorities, exhaustion, dissatisfaction. The partnership that began in 1983 ended without a dramatic public fight, only distance. Years moved forward. Children grew up. Business ventures expanded beyond music. One son launched a wine brand that earned industry recognition. Another married into a new generation of celebrity. The family name continued, but the spotlight changed shape. In 2022, a new threat emerged. One of his vocal cords had weakened significantly after decades of performing. Surgery followed. Recovery required patience and daily discipline. He set a private rule: if he could not perform at a high standard, he would step away rather than fade publicly. In April 2024, as a documentary revisited his career, he spoke with fewer filters. He referenced past excess bluntly. The phrase about getting away with murder spread quickly. Weeks later, he softened it, calling it a careless cliché. The contradiction lingered in public conversation. Through all of it, Dorothea remained, not as a silent prop, but as someone who had chosen him long before stadium lights existed. On April 29, 2025, they marked 36 years of marriage. He posted an old wedding photo and spoke about giving her 36 roses, one for each year. The story never matched the polished fantasy once sold to fans. It held ambition, temptation, fear, survival, and stubborn loyalty. It did not collapse under confession. It did not stay perfectly clean either. After 40 years in the spotlight, the legend looks less like a fairy tale and more like endurance.